Welcome back, gents. Today, ultimately, what we're doing is dipping our toes into large sample sizes. But I want to go over what we're looking at here first, because we are testing a multitude of things. First, like said, large sample sizes. Forgive the wind, we're having gusts of upwards of 20 miles an hour, but it's very inconsistent. And I just lost some of my notes. It's fine though, because on the left is the second thing we're testing, which is brass. Left is Norma, right is Remington, and then we're getting all hardcore and we're also testing sizing dies. So let's go over our testing methodology. 25 shot groups in 2 groups. All this is Norma, all this is Remington. This is with a standard Lyman full-size resizing die with the carbide resizing button. And this is with a Redding Type S bushing die with a 245 bushing. Give me 1 second while I grab my notes, because that's important. And you can tell how much of a hurry I was with these notes. I wrote Norman instead of Norma. Talk about going into automatic mode. Anyway, so with the Lyman die, we can see here, I measured the neck tension, or the neck diameter rather I should say. It's 221, and things are, I made a little note saying it's a little tight. In other words, it was just barely 221, whereas the Redding Type S die with a 245 bushing was comfortably 221. So that gives us approximately 3 thousandths of neck tension, as people colloquially say, but really it's just the neck diameter is 3 thousandths smaller than the bullet diameter. That said, let's take a look at our groups. We can see here we got this weird outlier there. Although it's not a true outlier, it's just an outlier from the rest of the shots. We have kind of the formation of a core group there, but otherwise we do have a good scattering. And remember, this is actually, there's a brief note here. I had several shots that actually went off on their own. I had somehow bump fired. So this is actually only 21 shots, just so we're clear. I will show that when we get to the chronograph. I don't know where the other ones went, but when we try to count the shots, I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I think 21, I think there was another one right in there, right in the center. If I had a shot marker system, that would be amazing. And I will say, I've done several of these tests now, and I've tried to do 50 shot groups. I actually did a short on that. And 50 shot groups makes it pretty hard when you only have Range Buddy as an app. Shot marker would truly give you a lot more accuracy, because when you're trying to guess those bullet overlaps, wow, that's difficult. Anyway, so going from Lyman down to the Redding, you can see that generally the point of impact is higher. I would say that although overall it might be a smaller group, edge to edge, I think that when we actually go and measure these, the mean radius for the Lyman is going to be better. But all in all, I would basically call these the same. I would just make note that there is a shift in the point of impact. Why is that? Well, part of it is because that neck tension is causing slightly different ballistics. Slightly. Overall, I believe it's the Redding that's going a little bit faster. Anyway, moving on to the Remington brass, and you can see here, just taking a general look, we have a much more poignant difference, a much more marked difference. It's going to be very interesting to see what Range Buddy comes up with. But right now we're just doing kind of our gross estimation, our gross observations of things. Let's get to that neck tension, by the way. You can see here that with the Lyman die, even though with the Norma Brass it was just under, it was tight, this is just over. So actually this is fairly loose. And then with the Redding Type S, it was exactly on 221. That's how I measured it with a pair of calipers. And it's interesting also because it's basically the opposite of what we got with Remington. Lyman was actually a little bit tight, and with the Remington brass, I misspoke. The Norma Brass, it was tight with the Lyman, but loose with the Remington Brass. I don't know why. And then the Redding was more or less, I don't want to say spot on, but it was closer to the actual measurements. But it was tighter for the Redding and it was looser for the Norma. So that's just very strange. There's a lot to learn there. There's a lot to take in, but we can see the results on paper. And in case I didn't say it, the load that we used was 23 grains of Shooter's World AR Plus, propelling a 55 grain bullet. So it's actually a fairly anemic load. When we actually get to looking at our chronograph, you'll see that it's just under 2,900 feet per second, more or less. So there we go. 4 different loads, essentially, because of the brass and how we sized it, for 4 different results. This especially is going to be very interesting. I think I skipped right over this, but we almost have 2 core groups, but this is definitely the main one. And how many shots do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there a 5th one in the middle? So that's 15. So that means the other 10 are right here in that grouping right there. So that's definitely the core group. Fascinating. Anyway, let's go take a look at our chronograph, and then let's also do things with Range Buddy. Let's crunch some numbers. Okay, there's too much reflection on the outside world, so I actually literally had to go inside my truck here. I'm looking at all the strings I've fired, and right now we're looking at the top 4, from 20 up to 23. You can see here, I didn't capture exactly 25 shots. I had some bump fires here, that's just a different explanation. But you can see here, pretty anemic load, little under 2,900 feet per second overall. Let's actually go take a look. And you can see here, big buttons. It's going to be kind of awkward to navigate, but let's get to it. So 20 and 22, those are going to be Lyman. 21 and 23 are going to be Redding. So let's take a look at the main screen. Oh, whoops, load. And you can see here, average right here in the middle, standard deviation down below it, max, minimum, the extreme spread, and it's nothing to write home about. Again, this is just kind of a, I don't want to say a random load, but it's purposely pretty anemic. And then the thing I really like is the ballistic coefficient. You can switch between G1 and G7 if you want. I selected G1 because I knew I was going to be making a video about this. Most people are used to seeing G1. That said, let's take a look at one of the things that's really nifty. Look here, it's calculated my dope. Very convenient. And then if we want to look at individual shots, we can, because this will help you diagnose some things. It's kind of interesting. There's just a lot to unpack here. Okay, sorry about that. Clicked the wrong button. But we already know that combustion is the best because 88 extreme spread. Let's go back to shots. Is there any other better examples of this? Oh, look there. That one has a noticeably higher ballistic coefficient, but the muzzle velocity is lower. So yeah, we have some combustion problems, quote unquote. That's just with the load. We'll be fixing that. Now let's take a look at the Redding. So again, the first shot I fired, or first string I fired was Lyman, then Redding. This is with Norma Brass. And load. Generally, I think it was a little bit higher. The extreme spread was also higher, so that's not good. But the ballistic coefficient actually ended up being just a little bit higher. I don't think we really need to bother looking through the list, but I'll at least briefly scroll through them just in case you're interested. Oh, look at that. Look at that outlier there. That was also a really fast one. I think that's the highest one. So what happened there? Who knows? Anyway, let's go on to the Remington Brass. So you'll notice that between the Remington and the Lyman, the Remington generally fired at a faster rate. I misspoke. You can see between the Remington and the Lyman, Well, that's the Remington. This is the Lyman. The Remington generally went faster. So let's take a look. Extreme shred, about the same with the Lyman. The other one was 88. This is 87. Ballistic coefficient slightly higher. Awesome. But also muzzle velocity higher. Does the dope card look any different? Looks like we got some information for 500. Not bad. Let's go lastly to... Oh, 1 second. Okay, this is the reading for the Remington. And you see here, this has the highest muzzle velocity, over 2,900, with one that was way out of whack, 3,000. Extreme spread, yikes. But the ballistic coefficient is generally higher for both of them. That's interesting, how it's measuring for a 25 shot group higher. Now let's take a look at our actual numbers. Fair enough. I'm seeing actually a fair amount of consistency here in that muzzle velocity. Where's the one that got really hot? The first shot. And that wasn't exactly cold bore. Huh. But you can see there, nothing outstanding for ballistic coefficient. So yeah, that just had a really hot charge or something. I don't know. I don't know how they explain it. We'll be testing more, but that's very interesting.